I've spoken to a lot of people, and it's not even like cinephiles and stuff. They just said they're just tired of American films. Like they're just tired of the same old narrative.
I think that it was interesting when there were like all these gimmicks, and I was like the balls flying in your face, and you were like, oh, it's coming at me, whatever. But then that got very old very quickly.
I think if you're gonna want to rule something as like a dictator, that's not what filmmaking is for, personally. I think that it used to be very like auteur dominated.
Hi, I'm Yaku.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Caleb.
And welcome back to Department Spotlight, which is the show where we speak to our friends and colleagues about their experiences in the film industry. So today we're going to be continuing on our discussion from last time, which was answering the filmmaking for dummies, or like just X for dummies. We're just going to answer their questions, which was called 10 questions to get film lovers arguing. So we didn't do a lot of arguing in part 1, but let's see what happens in this part. I think it's going to get pretty spicy.
It's gonna get lit.
If it doesn't get spicy, I'm going to cut it out. All right, but yeah, let's get into it.
For our 6th question, why not release films on all formats at the same time? Opinions.
Okay, so this is similar to what we discussed in the Cinemas podcast about HBO releasing everything all at once. That's an interesting question. I would like to start or open the floor with Short of the Week. When you enter, they talk about their strategy about sort of releasing on Vimeo, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, everything all at once, and then just sort of seeing what happens. So I think that's sort of similar to what they're talking about. Does that work for feature films?
I don't know. Maybe it's just because we like used to it, like that it starts off at the theaters, then it like in the past, and it went to like DVD rental, then it got to television like 6 months down the line. But I think for me, it then kind of just built up this thing where the full like releasing in theaters is like the ultimate place where it needs to go. Because I mean, like even when we were in college, we just felt like it felt so much more cooler when your film was gonna play in the theaters. You know, like if they just released it for your family to watch on online, you would have just felt like, you know, like it wouldn't have felt the same. So I don't know. I think for me, just being bred into that kind of mentality, I prefer it when it's like first in the theaters. Or like, but I think it also just depends on the film. Like if you made something for streaming, then that's perfect because then it's also international. But I think sometimes that's why they have that cinema release, because you just get that nice, like that prestige of that moment, and you also just get that red carpet moment. I know, you know what I mean? Like I think for me personally, and then obviously there's the other side to it where you could make more money in cinemas and you can actually see the direct impact where like people can actually see the box office for everyone to see, whereas with streaming, it's a kind of hidden curtain, so you don't really know what's working and what's happening. But yeah, I wouldn't agree with that. I wouldn't agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think they should all be released at the same time. I agree that there should be at least an opportunity given to watch it in cinemas first. Not much arguing happening.
Okay. I'm gonna be controversial. I'm gonna play bad cop. Not because I specifically believe in it. I just want to see what happens. Our experience with short films, okay? No feature film experience. When the film goes live, because on YouTube you can do premieres, right? And we did a premiere for all of our films on YouTube. When it goes live, I still got that like anxiety, whatever, that I got from showing the film in cinema, because it's like, oh no, now it's live, whatever. I don't think it's the same for features. But what I'm thinking is that, are we making the movies so that people can see it? Or are we making the movies because we wanted to show it in like a huge platform type thing? What? Because if you're making the movie so people can see it, then streaming TV would be a better release platform. Am I wrong?
But I think you're making the movie so that people can see it in the best way possible.
Okay, so you're making it, but only if you can see it like this.
Because you're making it, you put so much into it, you want people to see it in the big way, you know what I mean? I think obviously for me the ultimate goal is to have stuff playing in cinemas, but I'm not averse to things going on to streaming. Like streaming's rad, and also people are getting like bigger TVs and stuff because they're watching more TV.
And TVs are getting cheaper.
Yeah, but I also think that there's also something like different about like going to the cinema, and I would also like stuff to something that we make to play in cinemas. You know.
So that it's sort of like an event.
Yeah.
Do you think it's then like just like selfish then to want to have it played in cinemas? Let's say it's not like a big epic way. Like, do you need the cinema for that particular sound or the IMAX? Like, if it's just like a normal drama, do you think it's then just like a selfish thing of, which I don't think is a bad thing, or like a selfish thing of just like wanting to.
Like, let's say a movie like I'm Thinking of Ending Things. It didn't have a theatrical release, but did it need one?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Why?
Because then you're saying that the sort of big movies are the only ones that are deserving of that.
No. I mean, like, that movie didn't necessarily break new ground on sound. Didn't necessarily need they didn't shoot it so that it's perfect and crisp. Whereas something like A Quiet Place, that sound, it needs to be in a cinema. If you're experiencing it at home, you've got cars driving, you've got, whereas in the cinema, it's like quiet. It's like if you watch it in IMAX, it's like quiet, and then it's like loud, and then it's like quiet.
Like, for example, Malcolm and Marie, like a film like that as well. Like, there's no reason I think like you could enjoy the experience would be different. I feel like watching it at home versus watching it in the cinemas.
I think if someone said to me with any film, would they say, just as a basis, if they said, would you want to watch it in cinema? Would you, if you had the opportunity and the time and the availability always, would you watch it in cinema, or would you watch it at home outside in cinema?
But I think also like recently, what's like pushed me away from cinema as well is like there can be some real pricks in the cinema, that just use their phones or they play music or like the torches and stuff like that. And sometimes it just makes me like my dad as well. He just feels super uncomfortable sometimes in movies because he says there's literally like a sign on his head that just says "mess with me" every time he goes to the movie because there's always someone kicking his chair. There's always someone talking on their phone. And I think that's why a lot of people, when it comes to like normal dramas and things like that, or like middle budget films, they don't go to cinemas because sometimes they can also have a really bad experience as well.
You know what I heard someone say? I think it was Lou from Unbox Therapy on their like podcast channel. He was when HBO was talking about this releasing at the same time, he was saying that it would weed out those kinds of people because it's like the people who are going to be on their phone or are going to be whatever, they're not going to spend the money to go to the movies. They're just going to watch it at home. So then the people who do go to movies want to go to movies and they appreciate the format.
True. So I think that's actually good because I watched that same thing and I thought it was actually a good point. If the filmmakers are supporting the theatrical release and people that like cinephiles are supporting that, and then you get the people that just don't care about the experience, but don't appreciate it as much, and they have other interests and stuff. They prefer watching it at home with their families. Then maybe it would be best to release it on everything so that you can choose what experience you want to have.
I just wish that was the only thing because by doing that, you're also taking away revenue from the theaters, and without that revenue, they're going to die.
Yeah. And I think also watching something in the cinema, there's I suppose it's kind of like a strange point, but it's something I think about is I have a different experience watching things at home versus in the cinema because at home there's this thing of like I'm able to just like pause it and I'll tab or like go get tea or something. But in the cinema you sit down and it's going to play from start to end whatever you do, and it's like a different kind of like the cinema is like asking something different of you in terms of the experience of it, which I think is nice.
And you also kind of get more of that edge of your seat kind of vibe where like with a movie you don't get as tense when you watch certain like action scenes or like where you think something bad's about to happen. Like literally in cinemas you're like on the edge of your seat kind of thing from that experience. And I think when you're at home, because like you said, you can pause it, or like that tension could be broken because you left the room and come back. You have to kind of get back into that mode. But yeah, I think it's an interesting question, but I think there's different ways you can answer it. But I think the main thing is, if you're asking from a financial point of view, I think it is a bad thing if they're all released at the same time. But for an experience view, I think it's each to their own kind of thing. So yeah.
Do you like how we took a thing that we thought we were going to argue about it and then just answered it in the most diplomatic way?
Literally no fighting. I was like,
Yaku
I'm gonna
was
stir the pot.
opposing it. Yaku's like, I'm gonna pose it, and Yaku's like, yeah, I agree.
But also, you guys were also like,
I was thinking in my head, I'm like, how do I argue this? Like, God damn it, Mark, that's such a good point.
So the next one we have, I don't think we're going to stay on it very long. Will 3D stick around?
no.
No.
It's dead already.
Get out of me
There's
here
no
with your 3D
time.
movies.
There's no time for 3D movies post-pandemic.
I mean, look, even with 3D TVs, that didn't last. Like,
Yes.
people could play games. I think the experience of it is just too, like, I think your mind just doesn't handle it well. And I think it then maybe leads the question, will then VR be the next thing to take over? But I think the technology is amazing, but I think the human experience of it all is a bit jarring. I think that's the draw.
I think that it was interesting when there were like all these gimmicks, and I was like the balls flying in your face, and you were like, oh, it's coming at me, whatever. But then that got very old very quickly, and then people were like, okay, well then we'll just make it normal 3D. We're not gonna do gimmicks. But then that was just like a normal video that's slightly depthy.
Yeah,
It wasn't an experience as much. Or we just got used to it, maybe. I don't know.
I think the last movie I felt like, yo, this is amazing in 3D was Avatar. Like, that one for me was...
You mean like the first one that made it popular?
No, not very popular, but for me, like, yeah, like for me, it's just like, I felt like that movie was like really cool in 3D. But then, like you said, the gimmick ones just like destroyed the genre.
You know what was another good one as well was Guardians of the Galaxy.
I didn't see
That
that
was a
in
good
3D.
3D. Yeah.
You know, it's like, I think sometimes they're done right, but I don't think it's, I mean, 3D, the technology has been around for like actually a long time. But I don't know, I think the next step people might say is VR, but then the same thing is it's so jarring and so expensive. So I don't know.
VR is it's like a totally different experience, right?
Because that's like enclosed.
Interactive, it's like a different medium.
It's in VR, you're not gonna like suddenly lose the 3D effect if you tilt your head a little bit too much. Whereas with 3D, the 3D movie, you have to sit like exactly right.
So dark.
Otherwise, if you go like a little bit like this, then it's out of focus, and then you're like, but now I wanna.
You know, it's
Oh
like,
my gosh, I watched this one 3D movie and I could only watch it in 3D because all the other cinemas this was back when cinemas were still packed, lol.
Cinema's dead.
And they had like misaligned it.
oh no.
So the one eye in the glasses was just dark. You couldn't see anything. And you just see out of one eye and it was like slightly shifted.
No.
And I was like, this is the worst thing ever.
I remember when they started playing around with like different animation styles and stuff. When I watched Into the Spider-Verse, I thought it was a 3D movie because of how they did the color. And I literally left the theaters, got 3D glasses, sat down, and was like, this is the exact same. This is the exact same experience. And because of me, like 5 other people also left to put on the glasses. And by the end of it, we all just looked at each other. No. But yeah, I think like we said, maybe the future is VR. But I don't know, because I know people that also say they get headaches from VR.
Yeah.
And like,
No, I mean, I don't think that it's like. I think you're saying, will movies play in like VR or take over? I think that.
no, I mean 3D. I think the morphing of 3D has become, because the idea of 3D was to put you in the world, and I think VR is the
Does
thing
that better?
that's taking the mantle next. That's what
You know what
saying.
would be interesting is like a VR cinema, and like you log
Just
into
a
some
bunch of people
website,
walking into
and then
each
you're streaming a movie, a 2D movie, but you're sitting in sort of your seat in the cinema, and like it looks like the screen is over there.
That's
Looks
cool.
like it's a big screen, but it's just like, and then so like it's a virtual cinema. I think that could be interesting.
Is that already a thing? That must be a
It
thing.
must be.
I thought you meant the other way around, man. It's a cinema with everyone have VR just walking into each other.
No. I mean, you're not even walking, but you're not even walking. You're not using anything. It's literally just you've got your mask on. You're sitting on your couch.
No.
alone.
It's
And then
it
you-
should be the whole experience. It's you in the line, and then you're like buy snacks,
And
then
it's
you go
actually
in.
your mom giving you some snacks.
You sit down and there's someone too tall in front of you, so you have to watch it like that.
Someone's
and then
coughing.
a baby starts crying, and like someone's phone goes off, and you're like, but the movie's the same. It's exactly the same. You're like, damn, this
No,
is sick. I love
and
this.
then the projectionist like makes a mistake, and the thing is like tilted, and you go to complain to the manager. Like the whole experience should just be
Anyways, you guys just took my idea and just ruined it.
No, but also just on that VR thing, Like also like a lot of people said no, like filmmaking they're gonna start trying to do like horror movies and stuff in VR. But I think the problem with that is perspective because because you can look everywhere where there's a story, like you can't because then you have to try and make the story right around the person. And because you can't aim it like the cool thing with cinema, like Scorsese likes to say is like you just have this frame to work with. That like anything outside that frame is like you like that you don't know what's going on there, and that's why stories like cinema are so interesting is because you're looking at that small not small but that rectangle.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at it like trying to be more immersive with movies could actually take you back, and it's not really a movie anymore. You're like going into video game territory and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's different. It's virtual reality. It's not.
What's next? So is 3D dead? Yes.
Yes.
We think 3D is definitely dead. Yeah.
Okay. Another question here is: has Hollywood had its day?
I hope so.
You hope so.
Well, not hope so. I feel like it should be equalized now because I think what's nice about Netflix, like I think if you're talking about Hollywood, I mean like Western films. Like not that there shouldn't be any Western films, but I feel like it's time that other countries now rise up. Like and because I mean like before streaming, Bollywood and Hollywood like were the three main contenders. Now you have so much like not just movies like series and like I'm addicted to like Ragnarok, which is a show from Norway. My girlfriend she loves series from Brazil or movies from Brazil like Money Heist, like, and you just realize the deep wealth of it and the nice thing, not the nice thing, but like because you're saying Hollywood had its day, it means it's not the day for someone new, it's the day for everyone now. And I think like it's exciting for South Africans. It's exciting for people from Korea. It's exciting because everybody gets to watch. Like we now literally on like an international market or stage where you're not trying to make your films Hollywood or you're not trying to get them into the cinema. Speaking specifically with streaming, it's like you get to now see the brilliant storytelling from all perspectives, and you don't have to just be that one cinephile that has to hunt down a foreign film. Now because of streaming, everyone is into watching, and no one's like that whole thing of subtitles is no longer
an issue,
such a big issue as it was.
And like stuff like when Ragnarok comes out, it was in the top 10 of South African Netflix.
Exactly.
Money Heist was like number 1, and like it's like
Blood and Water was number 1 in America.
I don't know if it was number.
No,
1.
it was in top 10. No,
yeah, it was top 10. But exactly, it's like that wasn't English though. But what I mean is subtitles are being normalized, and that's a great thing. I think in our country we've got so many languages, so there is sort of like we accept subtitles because broadcasters require any language that's not English to be subtitled. So I think there is already that like mentality of reading subtitles, but it's like bringing it to everywhere all at once, which is cool. I don't think Hollywood has had its day though. I think it's still dominating, and it's gonna be dominating for a long time. I'm happy for streaming, like everything that you said. I'm happy for, but that doesn't mean Hollywood's done, and doesn't mean that Hollywood's not gonna be number 1 anymore. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden there's not gonna be money for Hollywood movies, because America is Hollywood, and America dominates everything. So they're just gonna keep.
I don't know though. I don't know because like if you're talking about in terms of money and in terms of like money wise and stuff like that, yeah, I think they do dominate. But I think I've spoken to a lot of people, and it's not even like cinephiles and stuff. They just say they're just tired of American films. Like they're just tired of the same old narratives because we've seen it for like over a century. The same and so many people, like I said, has been like people that I know, like friends of mine, saying. No, they prefer watching all these other foreign films and stuff. Something might not beat Hollywood, but I do think that its status is coming a bit down, and people are getting a bit more tired of the same old stories, and they're always like, "Oh, this is this." But once they see films from other places, they're like, "Oh, such an interesting take on this. I never like such an original story." So I don't know. I think there might be a day where it's not like something doesn't take over, but I do think that it is coming a bit more down in terms of the stuff it's bringing out because people are so used to it, you know?
I think there's so much being made now that maybe everything looks the same because that's just the stuff that gets promoted the most. I mean, I'm thinking of Ending Things Count as a Hollywood movie because it's from America. Or are we saying that only movies made in Los Angeles are Hollywood movies?
Yeah, I think that the definition is starting to shift because of that exact reason, right? Because it's like the Hollywood movie used to be like, is this movie made in like like a Hollywood backlot, you know what I mean, on a set with
Or Hollywood
big,
studios.
you know, movie stars in it, and it would all, you know, versus I think it's even in Hollywood the sort of the form of it is like shifting a bit. But I think I agree with both of your points. While simultaneously people are getting experience to a lot more like international things because of streaming. But then I also still feel like Hollywood still like dominates, and I also feel like when it also feels like when Hollywood feels like they aren't dominating enough, they always do something to try and dominate.
But like for me, like like from what I'm seeing in the past couple of years, is how much more foreign films have entered the Oscars. Like if you look at Parasite, how that became Best Picture, and I think like things like that is like showing precedents of the time. Where I think over time, like I do think that everything has its phase. I don't think that anything lasts forever, and I do think eventually. I do think there will be like a shift, not into any particular country, but I do think there will be a shift to where Hollywood just comes to the level of everything else, or everything rises to the level of Hollywood. Like I don't think anything's going to take over from it, but I do think a lot of industries are going to rise up to the same level because, I just don't believe that that anything ever lasts that long when it comes to like an established structure and established like it's been around for a while, and we do say it's Hollywood, but I mean I'm sure that people say that about a lot of different things that eventually over time it just dissipates, So I don't know. I don't. And for me personally, I don't think like if it hasn't had its day, I think its day will come like where it will be.
Yeah. I don't think it's at its day, but it's like towards the end of its life.
Yeah. Are directors still auteurs? Auteurs, the things
Auteurs,
that break the stones.
They make dams.
Yeah, are directors still auteurs?
Auteurs.
Do you want to
Well, I think we've spoken about this. We spoke about this.
It was
in
like
another
one of the
podcast.
first podcasts.
One of
that
the
we
first
did.
podcasts. I personally don't believe in auteur theory. I think if you're gonna want to rule something as like a dictator, that's not what filmmaking is for. Personally, I think that it used to be very like auteur dominated. So auteur theory is like the director's like the only thing. It's like their sole vision, and everything is exactly the way the director wanted it, and they're at the forefront, and it's. I mean, not everyone who says like a film by this person is an auteur, but it's kind of like a film by this person, and it's like full stop. You know what I mean? That's the kind of auteur theory. But I think that the guy who did, I always forget his name. The guy who did Ex Machina and Devs and
Alex Garland.
Alex Garland, yes. So Alex Garland, from the outside, people would think like he's quite an auteur, right? But he says himself he doesn't like that term because it's such a collaborative thing. I think you can simultaneously have a clear vision but still be a collaborator. You know what I mean? You don't have to be a dictator. I think that's what the auteur theory is kind of like synonymous with, which I think is nonsense. If you want to be a dictator, go, I don't know, be an actual dictator.
Go to Germany in the 40s.
Yeah, I think just to like be on the opposing side of what you were saying, of like you need to be a collaborator, is that there's this YouTuber Max Joseph, and he also did the Catfish shows. He's the guy with like the silver gray hair. He wanted to like find out from all these bigger directors if you need to be like essentially a dick to be a good director, like if you need to be really hard and just like say no, this is your way. And he interviewed Peter Berg, and Peter Berg literally said to him, because he said like he was like, you have to have that kind of mentality where it's like it's your vision, and you can listen to people, but at the end of the day it's the movie you want to make. And from like watching, it's like I wouldn't agree with that, but and then like when you watch his movies are so good and so engaging that I was like, okay, maybe you do have to have maybe like 80% of the level of an auteur or something, where you're like, okay, this is my vision, because sometimes it can get a bit muddled. So I don't know. For me, that was just something interesting that I thought that he went to this guy, and then and this guy was a pretty successful director, and he says no, that's how he's been from day one, where you have to kind of be a dick on set kind of thing. No. So I just thought that was like, interesting.
I completely disagree. I can disagree more, because it just sounds like he's not a nice person to work with. Because at the end of the day, you've built up this whole structure of making a film and that somehow gives you a pass to be an asshole. No, nothing in this world gives you a pass to be an asshole. Just don't be an asshole. Because have movies been made with incredibly nice directors and the films are brilliant and the performances are excellent and everyone had a great time on set, even though the subject matter might be like quite intense? Yeah.
Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah, exactly. But then there are films with like directors who put everyone through hell, and the films might still be like really good or anything, but the other way exists, and it's a much better way for everyone involved.
Yeah, but
because it's
funny.
people's lives for a lot of months, and you're gonna put them through hell just because you're a dick. It's just I don't think those people are good directors, to be honest. Just be a nice person.
It's true what you say, but like if you look at it historically, I'm not saying that I agree with it, but just like if I'm trying to be devil's advocate for it, because like if you look at it historically, all the greatest directors, so many people have said, what Dixon said, if you look at like Kubrick,
The greatest directors?
not the greatest, but the ones that we study the most, and like the people like Kubrick's, like how badly he treated that lady on set of The Shining, and the guy who did The Exorcist, what was his name?
William Friedkin.
Yeah, like apparently he was also really terrible, and like how he wanted to get the actors to be like. And if you look at even Hitchcock wasn't the greatest of dudes as when it came to exactly. And it's funny because if you look back, and even Roman Polanski as well, like I know some people.
Yeah, okay, but he's problematic on many levels.
But it's funny, like, and it's funny that like those are the people we study, and they were like the most harshest directors.
Yeah, but like Spielberg, what about George Lucas? What about Wes Anderson? What about Christopher Nolan? None of these people.
But that's why I think then it's definitely like a shift towards it. And like I don't know, like I think you have to have a balance where on some level you're like, okay, you have it collaborating, and then you still have that filter. But if I'm saying devil's advocate, I'm just saying it's interesting that how historically that change has come about.
I'm glad it's changing.
Yeah, no, true, and I think it brings a lot more voices in, and I'm like, if you look at some of their films, also there were some problematic stereotypes and things like that.
I think the auteur theory needs to be updated to not necessarily being one person doing everything like it suggests. It should rather be more like a, let's say Wes Anderson has a very specific style, but he doesn't do everything himself. So I think
say he does everything himself.
Yeah, exactly. I think the auteur theory should be updated to somebody who has a specific style and works with all his collaborators to achieve that style and achieve that look, and that should be an auteur.
Yeah.
Do you think though that it's changed recently because like more actors have a voice now, so directors have to like kind of I'm not saying tiptoe, but why do you think it is changing? Do you think it's just because people are better, or do you think it's because there's now more of a mouthpiece to say, listen, this guy's a prick?
Yeah,
and
I'm
so
not gonna work with you. Yeah.
Because I mean, if you look at the guy who did Chronicle, he went on to make the Fantastic Four movie, and like they said, like he was like such a dictator on set. Like he wouldn't let them read any of the like Fantastic Four books. He would say, this is the way you need to do it. He would like and and you would think, would someone like that have been successful back in the day, or is it just showing you that to make a good film it has to be a thing of collaboration? Because why were those guys successful back then, and why is it different now? And
so I think you just going on your example of him not allowing people to like read the source material, right? Instead of being a massive asshole about it and say you're not allowed to blah 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 X, Y, and Z, sit down with everyone, have a conversation about the type of film you're making, and suggest to everyone, say, I think it will be more of an exciting approach if we all didn't read the source material and go off in this because we want to make this type of thing. We aren't really... And instead of like blah, 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 it's like open up it to everyone. And what if someone's like, I want to read them or something because this is how I go about things. Then figure out a specific, person to person kind of relationship to work. Because I also think then he's just not a personable person if he's not treating every single person as like an individual. Because then if you're just dictating, then you're saying one thing, my word is law, when in actual fact, every single person also has their own approach, and it's just being a nicer person and you're going to get a better result if you're like specific to each person's way of doing things. He just sounds like he's an unempathetic asshole.
But yeah, I think I agree with both of you. But yeah, I just needed to see that transition and why it was successful.
And the last one, why study films when you can just go out and make them?
So if I'm interpreting the question, like if it's saying, should you like go straight into filmmaking versus studying it first?
At
like
university.
I think you should maybe do both. Like I know there's a lot of directors that didn't go to film school at all and still made brilliant films. So I think it's more of that thing of where experience versus education kind of thing. But like if you look at so many directors like Spielberg, who like used to take his camera and make miniature train crashes with like miniature trains and stuff like that and make his film. Like I think you have to have a little bit of both. And also film studies, like you can also do by yourself. You can't just watch a bunch of good films. Like I do think that there's two different approaches to it, and I do think that they both have the avenues that work out to about the same. Yeah. I think what the thing with like when you do it with experience, you kind of learn tricks of the trade that you wouldn't really in varsity, and you kind of also like you learn to know the equipment a bit more. You learn to be a bit more on set, if that makes sense.
I think that what you were mentioning is nobody who didn't go to film school and are good filmmakers did not study films, So what I'm saying is you can't just go and make a movie if you've never seen a movie. Like you can't go and I don't have any examples. You can't build a house if you've never seen what a house looks like. You can't.
I'm pretty sure the first caveman who built a house.
You just said caveman. They built a structure to simulate a cave. It's like you can't. You can improve on stuff, and that's what we've been doing as humans forever. But you can't. You don't know what. You can't just make something. Like if somebody describes a movie to you, and you've never seen a movie, you're not going to be able to make a movie. You're just gonna. So what? There's people pretending in front of a thing that records your every move.
Well, if you look at the first movie, it just was a train driving past the camera. They were like, wow!
Everyone built on from that.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, because those people didn't know what a movie was.
But that was building on photos, and photos were building on pictures, and pictures were building on real life. So it's like, you can't just make a movie without studying movies.
Yeah, it's like... when people talk about, let's say, for example, Picasso, he's an asshole, and he made art. He's most famous for making artworks in like an abstract style, right? And you sort of look at one of his paintings or something that's a bit like more minimalist but still abstract, and you're like, wow, I could have done that. But then you don't understand that if you asked him or another sort of abstract artist to draw something or paint something completely realistically, they could, because they've got that strong foundation to the point where they're starting to like change things. So you have to learn the basics to be able to start shifting them.
Got to know the rules before you can break.
You don't go straight to the crazy experimental thing. You start off and then you're finding, because it's like an experiment is you're experimenting within a thing. You know what I mean? But you get what I'm saying, right? You're not just like throwing shit against the wall. You're saying this is happening, this has happened because of X, Y, and Z and the way things are done. So I'm gonna do this because of X, Y, and Z. You're not just saying, I'm just gonna do this. You know what I mean? If you speak to like David Lynch, for example, who doesn't like to go into a lot of like the processes, and a lot of it is sort of coming from like dream logic and stuff, but if he were to go into it, I feel like he would be able to explain exactly what he's going against and X, Y, and Z, because of, it might just be, from his imagination, but then he's doing that because it's counter to something else. You know what I mean? It's not in a vacuum,
But I think also it's this thing where like, I think you also have to like, because you can't just start, like, I feel like if you like look at us in film school, when we made our first movies, they were terrible, but we still like knew a lot of films. I think it's a thing where you have to also sometimes just start somewhere and get that experience. Because I mean, like what do you say like to someone like Taika Waititi when he talks about filmmaking, where he says he knew about movies but he didn't know that much, like you said, even like in his interviews, I said put this thing in there and shoot this there, and he just said because he integrated his ideas of of other art genres like fashion and all of that. So I think you don't have to like I think if you have a movie idea, like I think there are some occasions where you can just maybe shoot something. It might not be brilliant, but I think you don't always have to be like a cinephile to make.
I think that's a bad example because Taika Waititi won an Oscar for his first short film. So
Yeah, but I mean before that.
But he was an artist. He was literally a painter. He watched movies. He knew things. He did research for that short film. He wasn't somebody who refused to study film and then just made an Oscar-winning film.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like I'm saying, sometimes you also just like, because if you look at the guy, what's his name, the guy that started after Barter, when he came to our class and then he was like, if you look at everyone, we all kind of know how to make a movie because we've been watching it all our lives. So I think like sometimes you don't have to go to film school and go into in-depth. Sometimes you get the filmmakers that just make these fun movies from the ideas that they have in their head. And they have some, like, they know what they want to do, but I don't think it has to be this thing where every filmmaker has to be this hardcore cinephile kind of thing and has to know every single detail.
No,
and I think maybe from the experience of also making movies, that's also how you learn. Like, you don't have to go into it like knowing I'm going against this rule. Like, sometimes you learn about the rule in making it,
Yeah. But also, a lot of those people, like Taika Waititi is the exception, a lot of those people are going to make trash. And then it'll start becoming good because there's, like you said, there's definitely value in experience, but there's no way that you can make a good thing. Because even if you make that thing, you're going to study it afterwards. You're going to see how people react. Even if you're not like consciously studying it, you're going to look and notice, and then you're going to apply that to your next thing. So you just can't get away from it. People study things. That's just how.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, the studying doesn't have to be the watching movie part of it. The studying can be the doing it part. Like you're making, even if it's like if you like have an idea.
I guess if you have like a lot of time, you don't care about failing, and you've got a lot of money to pay people to help.
Well, I'd like look at Taika. He made his thing like out of necessity. He says he was writing that first short of his when he was like a stripper, and he was like writing it when he said he had like a tub of Vaseline that he was rubbing on himself, and he was like, you know what, I'm tired of this. I want to make this movie that I had in mind. And the thing is, because like he had such a unique mind, if you look at his movies like Shark and Eagle, like it's so different. Like, and if he studied film a bit more hardcore, it might have been a more conventional film. But because like he just wanted to put all these different art forms together, he made something so unique when it came to like certain shots that was like not stop motion, but like, and I think it brought all these interesting elements into it. But I think you do have to maybe allow the thing, but I don't think from the get-go you have to be an intense student of the thing from the get-go. I think that comes also maybe with experience and time.
So that's it. We went through all the questions through over 2 podcasts, and you can get it. It's called 10 Questions to Get Film Lovers Arguing from Dummies.com. We're going to link down in the description below. And thank you for watching.
It's not a lot of arguing, but I think that last one got a bit heated.
There was we're getting there. There is some heat in it.
But please, if you want to answer these questions yourself, then please do that. Please post a video on YouTube, link it down in the description. We'd love to watch it. And then also, leave some questions. If you don't want to make a video, you can just leave a comment if you agree, disagree. And then share it with your friends. Let's get everybody arguing. Everybody should have an opinion. Everybody should just watch things and share opinions, because that's how we grow.
So please remember to subscribe and hit that like button. Hit it really hard. We try to think of a new description of how to hit that like button every single time, but just hit the like button. And until next time, go out there, stay safe, and make your movie.